Good evening, folks, and welcome to episode 24 of the Vegan Hour. I'm joined by Belinda Hardy from the Animal Justice Party. Thank you for coming along, Belinda. This is Tuesday, November the 27th, and I want to do a quick shout out to my wonderful sponsors. You can see in the background there, Vegan Frothers. Now, Vegan Frothers, not only are they cruelty-free clothing, but they actually support two wonderful animal sanctuaries, Sugar Shine and Save a Cow. So if you purchase from them, you're getting great clothes and you're supporting the animals. So support them. Win-win. And I see lots of people coming in, or geez, people are saying hello already. You're fast, guys. Now also, the Vegan Hour is sponsored by the amazing Cess Vegan Pies, home-delivered pies, so you've got to try them out if you haven't had them.
The taco pie is amazing.
See, I tell no lies. And Scindian Natural Food Products. So thank you to all my sponsors. Now, before Belinda tells us all about what she needs to tell us all about tonight, that was smooth, wasn't it? Not. Let's just find out what's happening in events. I've got a couple of events I want to mention. Tomorrow is Elixir Bar's Pay What You Feel Day from 12 o'clock to 8 p.m. at Elixir Bar on the Sunshine Coast, Gold Coast and Byron Bay. So get along, have their wonderful food and pay what you feel. Have you been to Elixir Bar?
No, I haven't been yet. No,
well, you should go along tomorrow.
It's on the list now.
It's on the list. It's on your list. And also now the other event which you're connected with Thursday night, yes, is this. It is the Dominion screening happening on the Gold Coast. 6 p.m. I've got down here at Mermaid Waters at Albert Waterway Centre in Mermaid Waters.
That's correct. So AJP is hosting that event. It's entry by donation. I've seen Dominion myself. Have you actually seen Dominion, Harry?
I haven't been that courageous yet.
Okay, yes, it does take a bit of courage, but I do encourage you to go there because it's a really must-see movie. It really highlights the plight of animals, particularly in Australia. Chris, the director, and his team have done a brilliant job, and just so much passion to put that documentary together. It's very hard-hitting. It is difficult to watch. It's a 2-hour feature film. However, it really is a must-see because the animals are living this on a daily basis in Australia, and it really just highlights that these aren't isolated events that we're seeing on social media. It's happening again and again in slaughterhouses and factory farms all over Australia, and we have to stop it.
Sadly, that is the case, that it is happening again and again. It's sad that there's so much of it happening, that there's 2 hours of it, and I think Chris actually said he could have made so much.
I think he said maybe 10 films he could have made. And we really take our hat off to Chris and the team that made Dominion. Thank you.
When you first, have you seen it more than once?
I don't personally think I could watch it more than once. And
what was the impact on you, like emotionally, really full on?
I think I did a lot of mental preparation before I went there. I think that was important. And the other thing was, when we went to the screening in Brisbane, it was full of a room of compassionate, beautiful people that actually want to help animals. So we really supported each other through it. And my tip to anybody going is, firstly, there's a chill out room if you need it, and there'll be support there to guide you through it. But you're on the journey with everybody else in that room and everybody else that's actually seen Dominion now. So I definitely suggest that after the show's finished, we all snuck up to the Story Bridge and sat down and had a wine afterwards and a debrief with some of my AJP family. And I think that was a really good way just to talk about it, so we could offload how we were feeling.
Maybe get some emotions out.
Yeah, before we went home. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So please come along.
Leah says, take your non-vegan friends, which
absolutely.
Actually, yes. So it's not just preaching to the converted.
Yeah. And I don't think anybody, whether you're a meat eater or vegan, can watch that and not feel compassion for animals. Maybe 1% of the population, and that's not our target audience anyway. Everybody says they love animals, and they'd be horrified to see and watch this film. This is their daily lives.
Yeah, and there's a few more comments there from Ellie saying it's very confronting but evocative and life-changing, and Tracy saying agree, it's very confronting and broke my heart as always. And of course, it's such a sad situation that it's so hard to watch, where most people are getting their food from.
Yeah, and absolutely. And I think it's really important to remember that if you have watched this film and you are still suffering from the effects of watching it and you haven't been able to process it, please reach out to your fellow vegan friends. We're always here to help each other. So yeah, don't feel alone in this.
Okay, so we're going to get on to tonight's topic, but I'll just finish with one more comment there from Joanne saying animal exploitation happens in Australia. It's not an American phenomenon. Thanks to Chris Delforce and the Dominion team for exposing the truth. Thanks Belinda and AJP for taking this on. It's time for change. So I've invited you along tonight to talk about your role in the AJP and running for as one of the 3 female candidates running for the Senate in the next federal election, whenever that may be.
Yes.
Yes. So,
it's looking to be May at this stage.
Okay.
So
okay.
yeah, we think that's when it will be. So definitely in the new year now.
Okay, fair enough. So, but before we sort of get into that, I've got a few little questions. I want to start with my favourite that I like to ask guests, which is your vegan journey. I want to find out about why you went vegan, how you went vegan, and when you went vegan. So let's start with that.
Well, we've only got an hour, Harry. So
okay, so let's not. Give us the Reader's Digest version.
Yes, I will. Okay, great. So I guess my earliest memory of just having an experience with animals that just simmered away and later came to the surface was I had a love of pigs all of my life. My cousin and I were obsessed with piglets. We always wanted to have a piglet, and to this day that hasn't changed. The only difference is when I get one, it's going to be a little rescue pig.
Yes.
I'm thinking Romeo and Juliet, we might call them. Might get 2.
Ooh,
anyway,
okay. Yeah.
so we watched Charlotte's Web quite a few times.
Yes.
And always talking about pigs. And then my mum's friend she played tennis with actually owned a piggery.
Right.
So we were actually, when I was in high school, I remember that distinctly because I had braces and curly hair. Quite the good looker. Anyway.
So did I, actually. I can prove it, but anyway, that's beside the point.
All right. Well, we'll get those photos up one day. Yeah. So anyway, we went along to the piggery, and one of the things I really noticed is we had to suit up and go through quarantine, but I was looking through a child's eyes. All I actually saw when we went into the birthing shed was the big mother pigs and all the piglets everywhere. And
how old were you?
This would have been year 7.
Year 7.
So I guess
okay.
it's around 14. I guess some would say maybe old enough to know better. I'm not sure. I think there's a lot more education now, but I didn't see it for what it was. So one of the baby piglets was a runt, and actually I got the opportunity to bottle feed it. And I just thought this was the best thing since sliced bread. We had a wonderful day. We didn't walk out of there sad. We walked out of there happy, which I'm not sure how that happens, but anyway, it did. But you know what? It boiled away in the background for a long time, and my love of pigs didn't go away, yet I was still consuming pig products such as bacon and ham.
Right.
And then fast forward to 2010, I just decided on my own that that's it. I could no longer partake in eating my favourite animal.
Good.
And as you know, once you make that connection with one animal, you're very quick to then make it with every other animal. So my gorgeous girlfriend and I decided to do Meat Week Free together in 2014. I know she'll be watching tonight. Hi, Mal. So we did that together, and then we got the some material in the mail, thinking, here we are, we're going vegetarian, we really care about animals, and then
what's wrong with dairy? Oh, that's a good one.
I was horrified. I really had no idea of the horrors of the dairy industry. So once I found out, I really started to transition away from dairy as soon as possible, and then became a vegan, a very proud vegan. And then that wasn't enough, so then you start speaking out about being vegan.
It's an interesting coincidence that you got that in the mail, you said, in the same week that you were doing the meat-free week.
It actually came as a part of the parcel, as did this brochure as well, the Why Vegan. So
just bring that up a bit closer. I blocked my head. because mine doesn't matter.
Yeah. So just all of these connections are made when you read this kind of information that you just never had actually thought about before, because the marketing companies obviously want you to see that the happy cow or the happy pig, and it's just not the reality. This is the reality. Dominion is the reality. Of where your food comes from. So just decided that I didn't want to be part of it anymore, and my gorgeous girlfriend is online.
Excellent. Okay, that's good.
And so is my beautiful little sister, who recently actually watched What the Health and then Cowspiracy.
Great.
And I got the phone call, Harry.
Oh,
guess who's gone vegan?
Isn't that's just like heaven to hear that? That's just, our entire studio audience is smiling at that.
So my little sister vegan and her partner as well. So I think they're about maybe about a month in now.
Fantastic.
And they're also going over and cooking dinner for my father and stepmother on a Monday night, and they're doing Monday night. So if the rest of my family's watching, watch out, you're next.
And it's possible too. It's possible. My parents 2.5 years ago now went vegetarian and are almost on a vegan diet. I'm just having trouble getting them over the last.
We've got to celebrate all the wins. That's great, Harry.
So it is possible even in your late 70s to do that. So that is fantastic. I love for hearing these sort of stories. So let's move on to because tonight we're going to be talking about the AJP. So I want to find out, now that you're a candidate with the AJP, what's it been like? It's a fairly recent thing for you, isn't it, coming into the AJP now? Yeah,
so it was a friend of mine that actually invited me along to a members meeting in the city. I went along, and not long after going into the meeting, I could very quickly tell that it was a place where I was going to fit in. And be able to actually use my skill set, my corporate background, my ability to talk to anybody, and,
including me.
Yes, exactly. And be able to help spread the word and try and make some improvements for animals. And funnily enough, over the years, I've been told a lot of times that I should be in politics. So
interesting.
Yeah. So it just all sort of came together.
So that road is starting to form in front of you.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's very exciting.
So your role, I was reading something about your role. Can we expand a little bit on your role in the AJP at the moment?
Yeah, so I started off as a member, as everybody does, and then I started volunteering at events, going to markets, raising awareness, doing marches through the street, peaceful protests, animal vigils, everything like that. And then earlier on in the year, an opportunity came about to apply to become a Senate candidate. So at the time, Leah and I both applied together and went through the journey together. Obviously, Karamay Kelly, I should say. Yes, formal tonight. She, has run before in the state Senate. Leah and I, this was new to us. So we went on this journey and applied and went through the interview process or the application process.
Is there a lot involved?
Well, for us there was, but I think because it was so important to us that we made it bigger than Ben-Hur. And, we were very... You
celebrated every moment sort of thing, by the sounds of it. But that's good, so you should.
It was. We all took it very seriously. So they had a panel that they put together that interviewed, I think there was 4 people that interviewed in the end, the final list, and then they selected 3 people. So, I remember getting the phone call. I was actually at a friend's... I think it was their engagement party. No, it was her hen's night, and sitting around waiting for my phone to call. I knew it was going to ring, and Lyndon rang me and said, congratulations, you've been selected to be a Senate candidate. And really one of my proudest moments. I'm
just imagining the feeling. It's just, wow. There's a comment there from Christine that says, you have inspired her to give some of those pamphlets to her family members.
Oh, fantastic.
That is fantastic. And you are made for, your friend Mel says you are made for politics.
Oh, thank you.
And Bernice says she's proud to be a member. Bernice from down in Victoria is proud to be a member.
I'm an ex-Victorian, Bernice.
Yes, you are too, aren't you? Yes, yeah. So we're all friends here.
Yes.
Okay, so shall we now talking about the AJP? There's been a Victorian election last weekend.
Yes.
Yes.
Very exciting.
Yes, very exciting. So let's talk a bit about that, how that went, and also because we were talking about Dominion earlier.
Yes.
Chris Delforce's Dominion, and I believe he actually ran.
He certainly
in
did.
the
How
election.
amazing is that?
This man
he's a powerhouse.
He's a powerhouse.
Triple
Incredible.
threat guy.
Yeah.
So we actually had 60 candidates run for the upper and lower house in Victoria. So that is 60 more caring individuals that are out there speaking and fighting for animal rights in the government and law reform.
60 Animal Justice Party candidates.
Absolutely.
That's impressive.
Yeah, the party is growing at an alarming rate, and hopefully in future when other state elections are run, we'll have similar numbers.
Yeah,
that would be amazing.
That would be encouraging, wouldn't it? Yes.
It's only going to go this way.
Yeah, that's
forward.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah. So interestingly as well, in Victoria, 2 out of 3 of the candidates that run were actually females. So we're really setting a lot of records as well and breaking those traditional trends of it being a male-dominated environment.
That's good too.
Yes.
I think to get the change that we need to get happening, that has to be part of it.
Absolutely. We need a good balance of both sexes.
Yeah, that is fantastic. Yeah. There's a comment there from Carl that says, count 18 Andy Meddock as Animal Justice Party provisionally elected, 100% confirmed 4th spot. And also no shooters, fishers, farmers in the Victorian Parliament.
Excellent. That sends a strong message.
Yes.
Look, we've been watching the count for Andy in the background, and thank you very much, Carl, for giving us that update there.
Fantastic. So is there anything we can learn from the Victorian election, or anything we can take from it, or that any comments you've got on that?
Well, I think is just making sure that all of our supporters vote for the Animal Justice Party when the election is announced. It's really important that everybody votes Animal Justice Party number 1. More so, we would also love your help on election day. Come to the polling booth. It's a hoot. It's a fantastic day. I loved it.
Yes, yeah.
So last year for the state election, Janelle actually ran in the seat of McAllister, which is down near where I live, and I actually went to the polling booth for the day and got an opportunity just to network, which you can obviously tell I like doing. And just handing out brochures all day and saying to people, vote for kindness, and just telling them about what we stand for as a party, caring about animals, the environment, human health, how everything's interlinked.
I believe you had a good approach. I was watching a speech of yours today where you were saying, you would say as people approach something like, I can tell you're an animal lover, is that right?
Yes, you look like an animal lover.
You look like an animal lover. That's a good, that's a
winner.
That's a winner, because I mean, statistically, most people are. They just haven't made the connection.
And the other thing is so many people are disillusioned with politics here in Australia and probably around the world, and not talking about the USA, of course.
Let's not even go there.
No. So, or they're just not interested in politics. And I'd like to find that because we're not, we have all different backgrounds, all the candidates. We're not career politicians. We're normal, everyday, relatable people that care about animals and the environment. So I think people can relate to us a lot easier. And that's the message we're sending on election day, is to vote for kindness. And I think that resonates with people. Yeah,
definitely. There's some comments here. Harry says, I love your name, by the way, Harry. Harry says, I've got a Dominion t-shirt. A lot of non-vegans are asking me what it's about. So thanks to the t-shirt, a lot of people are watching it.
Fantastic.
That's good. That's a good way of advertising. That's really good. And Snezana, I think that's how you pronounce your name, says, I have just run as a candidate for AJP in Victoria for the lower house and enjoyed the experience. Andy is amazing, and I am moving to the Sunshine Coast in a month and can't wait to get involved with AJP Queensland.
We would love to meet you and have you up here helping us and fighting alongside for animal rights. So please get in contact.
So there you go. We've got a whole networking thing happening here live. You get to see it live on the Vegan Hour. It's my announcer's voice. Okay, so talking about Chris Delforce.
Yes.
As we were talking about him running in. Actually, how did he? Do we know how he went with in the election before we sort of go off the election and move on to something else?
I don't have his actual. I don't have his actual stats there. But the thing is, the reality is of the background that Chris has and the network of activists that follow him and know about his other films such as Lucent, which is all about pigs. If you haven't seen that one, and then obviously Dominion. It was a great strategy to try and get the activists on board because we really need their help. So if there's any activists on board tonight, we need you to help out AJP, vote for AJP and get on board and please become members.
Well, I was going to say, of course, another important thing is to be members as well.
Yes,
because that's a way of supporting the party.
Yeah, for sure.
So right, so we've got so we're talking about Chris Delforce. We've got the Dominion screening coming up on the coast, which we've sort of covered that already. We covered that right at the beginning, didn't we?
Yes.
Was there anything we needed to add to that with the Dominion screening coming up on 2 nights' time, Thursday night? There will be a chill out room, won't there? I think you said there will be a chill out room. Yes.
Yeah. So
if you want to go along and sorry,
no, that's okay. I was just going to say there'll be people there to help debrief them and have a chat with them, and you don't have to go back in. So if it's too much for you, that's absolutely fine. We had people that felt the need to take some time out of the Brisbane screening, and that's okay.
Yes, it's understandable. You know, you just do what you can do at the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So a couple of comments there. I'm loving the fact that we're getting a lot of interaction tonight. It's always wonderful.
Yes.
Harry says there's a lot of vegan activists are involved in politics. Excellent. And Ashok, hello Ashok, how are you? Says, I was impressed by the speech of Belinda at Animal Liberation March in Brisbane a few weeks back. Looking forward to hearing more from her about the AJP.
Thank you. Look, I really appreciate that, and I'm not sure if it was obvious to you, but that was actually my first political speech for the animals, representing the Animal Justice Party. So I really appreciate the feedback, and it means the world to me. It gives me the courage to keep going on and speaking in those kind of environments. And what a great event anyway, getting together with hundreds of activists.
Fantastic. And there's no way I could tell that it was your first speech. I couldn't tell. No way. So you did incredibly well. And politics is or should be grassroots activism, Joanne says. And Beck says, I was voting AJP long before I even became involved with them. I love everything about AJP. There's a lot of love in the room.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of love in the airwaves. Oh, it's fantastic. Okay, so we've got some policies to talk about.
Oh,
Let's see.
Absolutely.
You're going to be telling us about a new waste management policy. What it is, what's the background behind it, etc. So we've covered a few areas. We've got through a few areas fairly quickly, so we can sort of expand a bit on this. Because we've got plenty of time to sort of expand on some of the policies and other things like that.
Okay,
so,
wonderful.
Yeah.
So there's a copy for you.
Right. Okay. So this is what we've got here. You're not going to be able. Obviously, this is just to show viewers that this is what the policy looks like. Obviously, you're not going to be able to read any of the words on it. It's a double-sided page, quite intensive policy, but it's covering a lot of different areas here, so I'll let you talk about it.
Absolutely. So Harry mentioned before that my involvement with AJP, one of the things I've been involved with is the environmental work group. So around the time that China banned the 24 types of rubbish going over there to be recycled, disposed of into landfill and whatnot, and they put the ban on, we were already talking about the problem with waste in Australia. And so that ban just emphasised what was happening and showed that Australia definitely wasn't processing its own rubbish and waste. It wasn't sustainable. Shipping it overseas does not actually fix the problem. All it does is move it to another area.
That's right.
So it was really important for us to put together a fact sheet that sort of talked about all the different elements involved. And I think, if we have a look at, I think the core basics are that we really need to reduce what we use. That's the first thing, because every product that we create, it has some environmental impact, which of course has an impact on animals. It also has an impact on humans, and it can have an impact on our health. So some examples would be to create products like timber, paper, palm oil, there's deforestation. Okay, so that's just in the procurement stage. So, you know, and there's also a huge amount of animal deaths and cruelty involved as well. So if we take the mining industry, that's another, so looking for precious metals to go in our mobile phones and everyday items like that, or our cars that we drive, you know, or building materials for our house. You know, they all have to get mined, and that comes at a cost to the environment, which again affects humans, animals together, okay? And then additionally, if we take plastic, which is I think what most people, when you say, you know, you talk about waste. They straight away go to plastic.
Yes.
But it's so much more than that.
Yes. Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
In fact, just going back a bit there with the mining of minerals or whatever, an upcoming issue that we're going to be facing worldwide is because electric cars are...
the copper. Yes, I was reading about that the other day.
Because they're becoming so... You know, it's just expanding so much now. They're becoming so. Australia hasn't sort of caught on quite yet.
Yes.
But now that it's becoming affordable and that this is going to be a big issue. It's like, okay, where do we get the resources we need for the batteries and all the infrastructure? Everything involved is going to create new problems.
Absolutely, Harry.
It's already happening.
Yeah, and that's a fantastic example, because it's not just about the running of the car, it's about everything that went into producing the car. Energy is like an invisible resource. Well, not on the bill, it's not, but it is invisible and it's often not accounted for. Same again with, you know, the use of water, depending on whether it's food crops or animals or whatever it is. So there's a lot of other wastage that just isn't accounted for when people start spruiking about something being environmentally friendly. Well, you know, I hate to break the news to you, but there is no such thing as green energy. There's greener energy, but it all has some form of impact. And at the moment, I don't believe we truly look at the whole life cycle. And so there's the waste at the end when we've finished using a product. And sometimes it actually takes more energy to have to actually recycle it than it did to actually produce it. So we need to come up with better and more innovative ways to actually, firstly, reduce what we use, and then have items that are produced that are actually more environmentally friendly and don't have that big impact on the environment and animals, or they're not, you know, having to take a lot of water to produce. So all those natural resources, and we need to incentivize and innovate in this country.
And I think that is possible, but you know, changes are happening quickly in some areas, and so there's strategies that need to be developed. But that's sort of getting us a little bit off track there. So back to the waste management policy. So where were we up to with that?
So I think another area I wanted to talk about, or a point of the fact sheet, is talking about food wastage. So I'm just going to quote here that Australians are reportedly throwing out $825 million worth of fresh meat each year. So these are animals that are suffering needlessly and then having to give their life for no purpose at all. Firstly, it doesn't need to happen in the first place.
Exactly, yes.
Harry and I approve. You can be healthy, strong vegans.
That's right. All your hair falls out, but apart from that, it's... I've done that joke, but I've got to stop doing that one. I've done it before, not tonight. But yes.
So food waste is a huge issue, and it's not just in the meat sector as well. And you know, there's a piece of legislation that they've actually introduced in France, which I would love to see here, where they actually make all the supermarkets and food stores, you know, they have to give the leftovers that are edible condition, which a lot of it is, to the homeless or to animals or to charities, which, you know, we need to just start thinking about that circular economy and not being such a disposable society.
I think I've actually got it posted on my page. One of the statistics show that worldwide 40% of food is thrown out. 40%. I mean, that's insane.
You know, it's tragic.
Well, it is tragic when the statistics also show that 45,000 people die a day of starvation. And 38,000 of them are children, which is like, I can't even fathom how that's possible. but that's the statistics that that I've read. So.
So another good one on food wastage is the pollution. So the pollution that comes out of a factory farm that's going into our waterways, that's causing dead zones.
Yes.
And then, of course, the oceans are suffering from all the plastic that's going in there as well.
Yes.
So we really have to look after our environment, particularly our oceans, which seem to often get forgotten about.
Yes, as if there's some amazing dumping space that just cleans itself
out
up.
Out of sight, out of mind.
But you know, when people start looking deeper at what's happening to the world environmentally, it is scary. You know, I posted some stuff about it. I started looking at it a few months ago, more in depth, and it was really depressing. Yeah,
it is depressing. But you know what? The biggest thing that individuals can actually do is to not eat meat products. That is one of the best things you can do for the environment. It's going to prevent huge amounts of land clearing. It's going to stop all that pollution as well. So, well, not stop it, but it's going to significantally reduce it. Yeah.
More so than anything else.
Yeah. So can I share a little story about...
we love little stories.
I've got a few.
Good. Please.
So I recently just started a new company 4 months ago as a service delivery manager, and what I loved is on day one they actually gave me a little green package. So it was a reusable coffee cup, a calico bag, and there are a few other bits and bobs in there. So I thought, oh, this is fantastic, because when I went in for the job interview, they actually had disposable cups, and I thought, oh, how long am I going to have to bite my tongue? When's the appropriate time before I can actually raise it with my work? Anyway, so a couple of weeks later, I roll up and I get that pack on day one. I think this is fantastic. They've got a green policy, and now they're taking it to an individual level, encouraging staff to be green as well. So now I'm 4 months in. Last week, I actually, or it might have been the week before, we don't have commercial recycling for plastics at work because local councils don't actually provide that like they do at home. So I took it upon myself to actually, now that we have the rebate scheme for plastics in Queensland. So for those of you, Harry, are you familiar with the rebate scheme?
Oh yes, sorry, the new one.
Yes,
I am familiar with it. I even had a look at all where the stations were.
Oh, very good.
How's that? How impressive is that? I haven't been to them, but I had a look where they were.
There you go. That's a start. So what I've done is I've actually set up a recycling container at work because it was all just going straight into the bin. I've put a little recycling note up there, and it's actually getting used, which is fantastic. But then on top of that, I can then go through when I get home and separate what needs to go in my recycling, what the recycling stations won't take. But then the rest of it, once a month, the plan is I'll go down and I'll cash it in. And then I'll donate the money back to the Animal Justice Party.
Oh, that is fantastic.
So, you know, talk about a circular economy, Harry.
That is fantastic, because one of the things that came up when I was reading about this new recycling scheme was that unless you specify what you want done with the money that's coming back, it was going to be supporting animal agriculture.
Oh my goodness! How do they get their way into everything?
There was two places that it would default to supporting, and one of them was Farmers Aid or whatever it was. So it was animal agriculture, and I can't think what the other one was. And unless you specify and say, no, I want the money back. Or I want to choose which charity.
Right. Thank you for that. I'm going to have to post about that on my Facebook page.
That came up a few weeks ago when I looked at it, and I just went, seriously? If there's a way they can stuff things up.
Oh no, that's right.
But see, that comes from a conditioning, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
I mean, you know, we've all been there at some stage. You know, we just didn't think about it. And that we're dealing with people who think they're doing the right thing, they've got the recycling scheme going, then just not thinking about where it's going. It doesn't occur to them. They go home, they still eat animals, you know. So it's like, okay, need to sort of educate them a bit more, or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
But I just want to get to a couple of comments before we continue on. But Christine says, in reference to what we were saying before, that we should manufacture things to last longer without inbuilt obsolescence, or what used to be called planned obsolescence, which is a really good point, especially because you mentioned mobile phones. I think you mentioned,
yes,
and that's something that, you know, they always push to upgrade every year or whatever,
yes.
you know. So.
So actually, while we're on mobile phones,
yes,
so I mentioned before about waste energy is invisible. So there's a little statistic here from our waste management policy. So I'll just read that to you now. So a modern mobile phone embodies as much energy as it took to produce a 1980s motor vehicle.
Seriously?
So
hang on.
Yeah.
Say that again. A modern mobile phone.
Yes, takes as much energy,
yeah, I think it was
as much energy as it took to produce a 1980s motor vehicle. I would attribute to the mining of all the products and the whole life cycle of the mobile phones. So
that's incredible.
Yeah. So yes, take your keeper cup, recycle your plastics, be good to the environment, but also remember things like your mobile phone or your electric car. You know. Aren't as green as they may be advertised.
Because there's going to be, you know, the whole life cycle of electric cars. Once they're everywhere, it's like, okay, suddenly you're going to have all these vehicles with batteries.
Absolutely.
At the end of their life.
That's right.
And it's like, what I know it's going to happen. They'll develop the technology to pull those batteries apart and reuse the components or whatever. But until that happens, there's issues going to be happening there.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
And Ree says, Belinda, we love your stories as well as love your passion and commitment to being a voice for the animals.
Thank you.
Very nice. Okay, so, and Lyndon says, I love this. Make local change while we fight for...
systematic change. Yes, I might lend that.
Should be a banner or something, shouldn't it? He's good. He should be with the AJP. That's it. Yeah, anyway. Right. So I just want to stick with the waste management policy because where's my copy here? I'll get my copy out. You've got your copy, right? Because it covers land.
Yes.
Water.
So we talked about land clearing.
Yeah, land clearing.
We talked about water to produce.
I heard some statistics with land clearing, which was just for Queensland.
Yes.
Which was, I can't remember the exact figures now, but it was pretty horrendous.
Yeah, I think it's around, off the top of my head, and you can correct me online if I'm wrong, but I know I'm close. It's around 93% in Queensland is used for, land use change. The land clearing is actually done for animal agriculture. So it's on the same level that they're cutting down the Amazon.
Amazon, because it's about 91%, I think I heard for it, yes.
So to make that relatable to everybody, that is the size of the Gabba cricket ground getting cut down every 3 minutes.
Jeez.
Yeah. Yes.
Wow. But there's more to that story too, because we had a gentleman that was working, I can't think of his name, but he was working in the Queensland government for 30-something years, researching the land clearing. And then he was to present, him and his researchers, a report to the government. I think it was going to go public or something. The report was to talk about, what the statistics were showing. And he was told to fiddle it a little bit so it didn't look so bad because of the $500,000 that was paid by the animal agriculture industry for the report. And so he resigned from the Queensland government. This is public. This is not secret. He resigned from the Queensland government. I wish I could think of his name. This happened about 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Does anybody know his name? Help Harry.
He resigned about 5, 6, 7 years ago. He resigned on the day that he was meant to present this. He now has been lecturing. Actually, if Leah is watching, she will know his name. He lectures against it now because the vested interest of the animal agriculture industry putting $500,000 in to make a report look good for them,
It's unacceptable.
But there's a really good comment there. Well, somebody's coming up with his name. There's Gerard Bishop, thank you, Lyndon. You are great. You definitely should be for the work with the Animal Justice Party. Lyndon says you can use the reference number. You can use it. He's put a comment there, so I won't read out the number. It's a long number, but essentially what Lyndon is saying is there is a reference number that will allow your deposit from the recycling scheme to go back to the AJP Queensland instead of to animal agriculture. Beautiful. That's the way to do it. Yes. I feel happy now. Okay, there's a video. Leah's actually said there, Appetite for Destruction by Gerard is a great video to watch. So that is in relation to that.
Thanks for sharing that,
it just brings up the battle against the vested interest, which we're seeing locally on the Gold Coast at the moment with the Black Swan Lake, the same thing with our council, was it $1 a year or something? They've just thrown away a beautiful lake and habitat, and it's being filled in, and there's the birds and there's the water animals, and it's just, and their environment is going, and they're being killed, and it's all for greed and vested interest.
Absolutely. It's something that the Animal Justice Party won't stand for. And while you're on Black Swan Lake, they actually went along to cancel today a group of caring people, some AJP members there, some people from Coast to Coast Animal Friends. And, we hope that we raise enough money to actually put an injunction in to stop the filling of the lake, because it's very corrupt. The whole thing stinks.
It's very corrupt when there's something like a dozen councillors, I think, including the mayor, that have ties to the turf club that is going to use it as a car park or something. It's all it's just all connected. And like
you said about Gerard,
Gerard,
the truth always
Bishop,
comes out, but the problem is it too late for those animals? And we can't afford to leave it with all this red tape and corruption going on. We need to act now, and this is why you need to vote for Animal Justice Party in the federal election coming up next year.
And in the meantime, we need to get the local council wiped off and an administrator put in. It was done before. It's been done on the Gold Coast. I think it was in the 1980s. The entire council was just, I don't know what the term is, but they put an administrator in to run the council because of, I can't remember the reason now. Maybe somebody will remember the history, but so those were the days. If you weren't here in the 80s, you missed it. So we covered land, water, energy. What else have we got there? Recycling, materials. And I like this, the circular usage conundrum.
Yes. So I guess what I should say here is not all waste is equal. And I sort of touched on before, some products being too toxic to recycle or costing more to actually recycle, and the energy involved to recycle it. So some of these things are invisible, and so we really need to take into account all of these other factors, which I don't believe that we actually do at the moment. So I do have an example of a good circular economy.
I hope it's a story.
How did you guess? Okay, so it's actually a colleague that I previously worked with. She got sick of being in the corporate industry and wanted to do more and give back. I guess similar, everybody in the AJP would understand that, or anyone that's gone vegan, you want to give back to the community. So they actually started up a business called, well, it's not a business, it's a profit for purpose, and all their money goes to charity. But they take all the dormant goods around your house, and they have this world's biggest garage sale. And they just had one on the 17th of this month. I was at Unity, so I couldn't go and volunteer for the day. But those dormant goods that are just sitting around, they don't end up in landfill. But what they've actually done is they've saved $1.7 million contributed to the global economy by reselling these products and not going into landfill. They've diverted over 3.3 million kilograms of potential waste has been diverted from landfill. They've raised over 314K for charity, and they've prevented nearly 600 K of kilograms of CO2 entering the atmosphere.
Wow.
And nearly 990 millilitres of water saved.
So nearly 1 billion litres of water.
So that was talking about, you know, producing these new products or putting them into landfill, that huge cost. And, you know, when items go into landfill, you know, landfills are increasing at a huge rate. Again, that requires land clearing, which is knocking down animal habitat to then have this waste. So yeah, I think it's a really great initiative.
Fantastic. What was the name of that organisation that was doing it?
It's world's biggest garage sale.
That's what it's called.
Yeah. Yes. And so it was a great event to go to, and I think it's this is what we want to see. We want to see more circular economies created that actually benefit, you know, from all aspects. It's not just a sort of tokenism. Oh yes, we've got a circular economy, and it's actually bad for the environment. That's not what we want to promote.
Now, you mentioned the Unity Animal Rights March there.
I think we briefly touched on that. There was a comment on the feed before.
Yes, but you also, I think you mentioned it just then, because I want to get to that at some stage. Yes. But before we do, Danny said there they've filled most of Black Swan Lake in already, which I was afraid they might have, because they started doing, I think, last week, maybe, I think.
Tragic.
Yes, very much so. Any time that anything like that happens, it's just wrong. That's the only word I can think of, is it's just wrong. I want to know. So okay, let's move on from the waste management. Would you call yourself an eco warrior?
Oh, I think that's the goal, that's the dream, but I've seen people do it better than me, Harry. So, but you know what? I think it's all about just self-growth and continual improvement. So there's always something I'm doing in my life, and something I'm conscious about. I can change next. So I'm not perfect by any way, shape or form, although my husband might think I am.
He's a good man.
Yeah,
He's a good man. He got a shout out.
So that's the long-term goal. So I did do Plastic-Free July earlier in the year. Oh, in July, funnily enough. What do you know? And it really was amazing, just being conscious. I guess it's the same with being a vegan. The light switched on. You're really conscious about everything you do and consume and say sometimes. It was fascinating for me to see all these extra things I could do. And it was great to watch what other people were doing, and I could adopt that into my lifestyle. So I've made some really positive changes there, but I think there's always a ways to go.
I'd have to confess that about a decade ago, when my PA came into my life, she's very much into recycling, and I learnt a lot. I really was in the dark, you know, when it came to, and she's like, no, you got to do this and you got to do that, and I'm like, oh, okay, so you know, we might be vegan, but we could be missing out on, you know, knowing stuff from...
Absolutely, and you actually just raised a really good point, that the recycling for people at home is really confusing. So what we need is a national standard so people can easily recycle at home and put it in the trash, knowing that it is going to get recycled as well.
I get confused by the number of times our local government seems to change the colour of the bin lids in the wheelie bins. It's like, hang on, wasn't it yellow? Why is it now blue? I mean, or a green, or what is going on? Just keep it consistent. I'm a simple person. Just make it easy for me. But
there was even talk in Victoria, and I did put a poll on my Facebook page recently.
Yes, I voted.
Yes, thank you. Where they were looking at changing the bins back to fortnightly.
Sorry, I voted on the other one, the reindeer one.
The reindeer one, which I was schooled by somebody that there's no reindeers in Australia, but I don't think that was the point.
Yes.
So...
Well, we've got two stories happening.
Yes, we do. We better fill the viewers in, Harry.
Which one do you want to do? Because they're going to get lost. The reindeer one was that somebody was trying to school you to say that because we don't have naturally occurring reindeers in Australia, if they use regular deers, that's fine.
Yeah, which it isn't.
Which it isn't.
So the poll was about leading up to Christmas, and we know that previously, before in Brisbane, we've had shopping centres or the CBD bring live deers, not reindeers, into, you know, bringing Santa's sleigh in as a part of their show. And so the results were overwhelming. I think it was 95% of people in Brisbane were against it, which is just fantastic. So
yes. So that was the poll I did vote in. Please tell me about the poll I didn't vote in.
I'm offended you didn't vote on the other one, Harry.
I didn't see it, I'm sorry.
So in Victoria, they're actually talking about changing the bins, the bin collection back to fortnightly.
Okay.
And I'm not sure about how much waste you have in your bin, but I certainly could handle the fortnightly.
I couldn't.
You couldn't?
I run, well, just personally, because I live on an acreage property. So for somebody that lives on an acreage property that has 3 households on the 1 acreage.
Right. With a shared bin?
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
You can imagine how that fills up.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
But, you know, there are things you can do at home as well. So I have a composting bin at home.
Yes.
So if you want to keep the smell out of your bin,
Yeah.
obviously don't eat any meat or meat products or dairy. That's the first step.
That's the first thing,
But
yes.
then all of your vegetable scraps and anything like that, put into your compost. Don't put it into your waste bin. How about the viewers? Could you live with a fortnightly bin collection?
That's a good question. I should also say compost bins are really good for rats. I hate to say it.
Not if you get the one I've got. It's off the ground. It's
you've
it's
got
mounted.
the tumble one.
It's got the
You've
tumble
got the tumble
one.
one. Yes, great. Okay, mine's not that advanced.
Oh, right. If anybody wants to get Harry a Christmas present, he needs an off-the-ground composter.
I need an rotating. I was looking at them, yes, but
and another council bin.
And another council bin. I've got actually I've got 2 recycle bins. I've actually got to, and I managed to fill up both of them.
Fantastic.
Yeah, because it's fortnightly for the recycles.
Wonderful. And if you start putting all of your doing the rebate scheme, you'll be able to.
Oh yes. Oh, see, that ties in with what Ali said, that I've seen Belinda's videos on her Facebook page, and she's always very innovative and thinking of ways to reduce her impact on the environment. And that's exactly what you did then. With me. That's brilliant. I love it. Okay, so you mentioned your husband a moment ago.
Yes.
I wonder if we should touch on vegan pregnancy, or
we can absolutely do that.
Now, why would we do that, do you think?
Well, I think it sends a great message to people.
Because I believe there's a bun in the oven.
Oh yes, absolutely. Yes.
I
was
thought
2 steps ahead of you there.
So yes, which is great, because you're going to be bringing a vegan into the world.
I am.
Yes,
so
fantastic.
we're really excited. I'm 22 weeks pregnant at the moment. I've had a wonderful pregnancy. I've only been ill one afternoon, which incidentally there was an AJP meeting, so that was fun. And also so I'd made some lovely vegan sausage rolls that day as well, and had my friends come up to the house, so I just happened to have house guests as well. But other than that, other than early nights, it's been fantastic. And maybe part of the reason why I haven't had a lot of morning sickness and I've felt a lot better is because a lot of the foods they tell you to stay away from when you're pregnant are meat, dairy, soft cheeses, and seafood. So I found it's just really interesting. And on a lot of the online forums that I'm on as well, there's a lot of women that traditionally eat those products and they cannot stand they can't stand the smell or the flavour, and their taste buds have changed.
That's interesting.
Yes,
that's something I could dwell on a bit, the whole reason why that might happen. That's fascinating.
It is, isn't it?
Is it like we're actually going back to our natural plant herbivore state when a woman becomes pregnant? Is that maybe... That's amazing. I've got to research this.
Yes, and actually, somebody said to me, because I always thought that you get programmed to start eating meat, which is true, but I never really thought about the fact that all human babies are vegan when they're born.
Exactly.
We are vegan.
We are born vegan, yes. Yeah. And then our wonderful parents ruin it for us.
Yes, well, that's not going to happen.
No, it's not going to happen here.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're also very fortunate in 2018, there's many, or relatively speaking, many kids now that are brought into the world vegan compared to what there was a decade ago or 2 decades ago or whatever.
Absolutely.
There's a lot more resources. There's nutritionists and naturopaths and dietitians and that themselves have vegan children from birth all their life, whatever, like Amanda Benham in Brisbane, and you know, they've just got tons of experience, advice.
Absolutely. And, you know, I've had my doctor checkups, I've had my blood tests, everything's tracking along exactly how it should be. So I'm not missing out on any vital nutrients. My baby's above average the last measure they had. So it's a strong vegan baby.
Is your doctor aware?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
I wasn't going to go to a doctor that wasn't okay with it. She's not vegan, but her best friend is. So that's my local GP at the hospital. You just get the doctor you get.
Right. And see, that can be a challenge, can't it? But it's good that, you know, that you've got somebody there that's supportive and understanding, and is not going to try and put you down or argue with you about what you're doing.
Yeah, that's really important. And, you know, this sort of ties in and just emphasises what I'm trying to do with animals and the environment, because now that I have, as Harry called it, a bun in the oven, is so much more important to me. It was always important, but, you know, we have to make sure that we protect this planet for future generations.
Yes.
You know, I want my daughter or son, we don't know what we're having, but to be able to see a koala, to see a kangaroo, and you know, part of me already feels upset that they're going to be raised vegan and then find out about all these awful things that humans do, and you know, so we've really got to change that, because it's the old saying, if you put a bunny rabbit and an apple in with the baby, it's going to eat the apple, play with the bunny rabbit, and we just don't want that to change.
Yeah, that's good. I love it. That's the way that life should be brought into the world, with that understanding and that compassion and that philosophy. That is beautiful. So I'm looking at the time, and I'm wondering what we haven't covered tonight that you wanted to talk about.
Okay, so we talked about getting involved. We really didn't touch on AJP membership, but somebody mentioned, I'm just going to call them the shooters party, to keep it short, that they didn't get in Victoria, which is great. But one thing that's a real concern is they did manage to register as a party in Queensland recently. And now there's certain thresholds that a party has to meet with their membership numbers to be able to register.
Yes.
So this is a call to action for everyone that's an AJP supporter but not a member yet. If you could please sign up. It's only $22 for the year to become a paid member, and we really need your support to boost our membership numbers. That's really vital. And obviously the other point of voting, one for Animal Justice Party and volunteering on election day. So please contact me afterwards. That would be wonderful.
Excellent.
Great.
I can't believe we covered everything. Did we cover everything?
All right. So the other thing I could talk about, if we're
we've got a couple of minutes to go there. I had a couple of little points here. I didn't know if you wanted to mention, if you wanted to go into any of them. With it's just those two we haven't really said much about, but otherwise, please.
Great.
You have the floor.
Okay, thank you, Harry. So the power of social media. So please make sure that you're following all the candidates' pages and supporting us. So Dr. Leah Coots, Cara May Kelly, and obviously myself, Belinda Hardy. We've all got our own pages. There's lots of different content. All three candidates are strong women. We all have a little bit of a different flavour on there. But just to give you an example of a post I shared last week, it was on, I think it was actually Monday the 19th, there was a live export ship coming into the port of Hamilton. And I work around the corner from where the port is. So I was more than happy to be a scout and keep an eye out and see what was going on.
Right,
Anyway, as I was sort of mentally preparing myself and driving around the corner a few minutes away from the port, I pull off the gateway and I see the big truck sitting there with all the cattle in it. Now, the cattle can't properly see out of the purpose-built vent because they're not large enough. So they're still, I would say, juvenile cattle. So, so the driver had decided to get a snack. So he'd popped into the carvery next door and he's in there. So I pulled over and seized the opportunity to get out and tell their story. So
you did a live stream?
I did a live stream on my Facebook feed.
Yeah.
It's there if anyone wants to see it. But the power is that their story has already been shared over 51 times on my page. Last time I checked, over 3,000 people have watched it.
That's
a lot
good.
of people don't know that live export ships are leaving from Brisbane right here under our nose.
What? I didn't know that until I saw that post on your page.
There you go. So that's the third one I've seen this year. So that what they're doing is, in those 3 cases, they're actually sending the cattle. That was the Devon Express, that one.
Right.
But there's about 3,000 head of cattle that they're sending over to Osaka in Japan. And once they actually get there and are unloaded, they go to a feedlot for 500 days. And then after that, they're then slaughtered for Japanese Wagyu, not from Australia, Japanese Wagyu, because it commands a much higher price. So animals should not be on live export vessels. Australians have had enough. 3 out of 4 Australians want live export ended, and Animal Justice Party is going to keep fighting until we see an end to that awful trade.
There's a couple of, before we go out, because we're coming up on time, there's a couple of comments there. Lyndon says, imagine the shooters in the Queensland Parliament. I'm not going to touch that one. There's Leah has shared a link there for how to join the membership, become a member of the AJP.
Thank you.
I got the words out eventually. Ashok says, we need more candidates in AJP of your calibre, who is setting the standard for political parties. It's a very nice thing to say. Christine says it does not bear thinking about what's happening with those cattle and that. And Ali has shared a link of
candidate pages.
Of the 3 female Senate candidate pages. I've had so much difficulty just saying all that. Anyway. So we are actually, let's see, is there no, okay, good. So we're actually getting to the end of the Vegan Hour, and it's called the Vegan Hour because it goes for an hour. So that means...
Oh, we're 1 minute over.
That doesn't matter. So that means we're going to start winding up, and I'm going to thank you immensely for coming down here and for sharing with us your role and what you're going to be doing, your passion. You're just, I read here earlier today, and I think it sums you up beautifully, that you want to create a healthier, kinder, and more sustainable future.
Absolutely.
And I think that's you. That should be a sticker on the back of your car. This is what I want to do. So, and we've given the rally cry there for people to join up to the AJP.
And I can just see that Trick, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, has just joined. So thank you very much. We really appreciate your support.
And Lyndon says, great interview.
Oh, Harry or me?
Not me. It wasn't me. So okay. So let's wind this up by mentioning what's happening in 2 weeks' time on what is possibly the last Vegan Hour for this year. Although there may be a bonus Christmas one that I'm not hinting at all. But for episode 25 on Tuesday, December the 11th, I'm actually talking to, I've got that wrong. I'm talking to Tammy Fry from Fry's Family Foods. If you've heard of Fry's Family Foods, you get them in, I think they're in all the supermarkets and all that. Fully vegan company, of course. Very interesting history in that because, anyway, we won't go into it. But Tammy will be joining me in 2 weeks' time. So that'll be possibly the last episode for this year, unless I do another one, then it won't be. So, thank you everyone.
Is killing me.
So thank you everyone for joining. Thank you once again, Belinda, for coming along.
Thanks for watching, and thank you so much, Harry, for supporting myself and the Animal Justice Party.
It's not me, it's all you guys. So thanks everyone. I hope you live vegan and save lives. Have a good night, and speak to you soon, and support Belinda and the AJP. Good night.